What's up everybody, this is Cody Bidlow with ATHLETE.X. Thanks for tuning in to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how you can vary up the methods you use in the weight room, such as exercise selection and timing, to make sure that what you're doing in the weight room is fitting to what you're doing out on the track, out on the field, or in your sport-specific performance training. So while you're here, please subscribe below, hit that thumbs up like button. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you enjoy. So in the world of sprinting, and any sport that utilizes sprinting as a part of its play, such as football, soccer, baseball, you can break down the performance of sprinting into a few subcategories. So the three main components of sprinting are going to be acceleration, top speed, speed endurance. Now, within acceleration, for example, the postures, the ground contact times, the direction of force application, all of those factors are going to be unique compared to, say, when you're sprinting at top speed or when you're in a speed endurance phase and you're just trying to minimize deceleration. During acceleration, from the start of the race until you're upright and you've reached top speed, the ground contact times are going to be longer, and they're going to go from long to short over the duration of the sprint. The stride length, you can think of it more as how far you project your body through the air each stride, is going to increase as you go, as well as the stride frequency. So from step one until you reach top speed, your stride frequency should be increasing concurrently with your stride length. Now, because of the positions that you're in during acceleration, you are applying a lot of horizontal force relative to the ground. One could say that you are, relative to the angle of the body, applying vertical force, but that's a topic for a different discussion. So during acceleration, you're producing a lot of horizontal forces, and those are being applied longitudinally through the body as your body is angled and sprinting, in the direction you want to go. Most of the time, you'll see that you're reaching deeper hip flexion during acceleration. So you're on the front side, your knee is coming up, and it's coming up to a greater degree than it does at, say, top speed. You also, because you're on the ground for longer, there's a greater force factor involved compared to when you're sprinting at faster speeds and spending less time on the ground. So early in acceleration, you're dependent more on, from the start, concentric force development, and then as you go, there's eccentric, isometric, and concentric aspects to it. But the predominant, method of accelerating is applying large forces over moderately short periods of time during very early acceleration. As you progress up, the ground contact times are going to decrease, and also your posture is changing. You're rising up to a much more tall position. When you do strike the ground, you're going to be spending less time there, and the overall force application is going to be much more vertical relative to the ground. Basically, you're picking the leg up in front of you, striking down like a hammer strikes a nail, and scissoring back and forth or switching back and forth between the legs as quickly as you can so you can get through the line as fast as possible. During speed endurance, similar to top speed, you're going to try and maintain minimal ground contact times and upright posture. You're still going to be applying a lot of vertical force to the ground. Now, as you transition from top speed into speed endurance, you will start to decelerate, so ground contact times will increase, but not intentionally. We're going to try and minimize any increase in ground contact times that we can once you've reached top speed, and that's where proper technique, speed endurance training, and proper strength training principles can come into play and really help you, prevent deceleration late in the race. So if you want to get the most out of each training session that you take part in, then the themes of your training session, whether you do one session in the morning sprints, or you do two where you sprint one part of the day, you lift another part of the day, maybe you have some sport-specific practice thrown in there. Whatever the case, what you do in that day should be within a certain spectrum of themes such that everything you do is contributing to the ultimate goal. So say you're working on acceleration out at the track, maybe you're doing 30s, maybe you have a little bit of sled work in there as well. Well, when you go into the gym, the lifts that you do should be in similar ranges of motion, similar movement patterns or muscle activation sequences, similar postural Considerations should be thrown in there as well. Force generation times, so rate of force development, that could be a part of it. All of those things should be considered. So if you were to pick from a list of exercises for acceleration, say a squat variation, it would be most beneficial to use a squat variation where you are in a unilateral stance, so one leg is forward, one leg is back. You would be loading a little bit higher loads on that day because of the greater force generation requirements of acceleration. You could implement things such as bands, heavy sleds, other things like that to create a more horizontally oriented movement. You would want to get into aggressive forward lean postures so you can train the core, train the hips to be in that aggressive forward lean paired with aggressive hip flexion that you see, if you watch Christian Coleman start, for example. The dude launches out, he maintains a very aggressive posture, a very aggressive knee drive, and he does this very effectively. Now, I'm not saying that you or I can go out and emulate what he does, but what we do in the weight room should consider the positions, the time characteristics, the force generation characteristics of what it is that we're doing on the track. One variation of the squat that I would probably incorporate on a day like an acceleration day, or any day really, but particularly acceleration days, would be a split squat, a rear leg elevated split squat. Either one I would do with a safety squat bar, and I would aim to do them within the time frame of whatever I did on the track that day. So say I did 30s, well, for me, I'm going to run a 30 in around 3.9. So what I do in the weight room should be probably 4 to 5 seconds in length per set. If I go beyond that, I'm probably getting out of the physiological realm that is most specific to what I did on the track that day. Because if you think about it, like energy systems, for example, are pretty time dependent. So if you do something for 1 second versus 100 seconds, the dominant energy system that is used in either one of those situations is pretty much strictly dependent on time. So I would like to keep all of the things that we do on a given day within the same time range that we saw on the track. Other things I would include on an acceleration day would include very heavy sled pulls done in a marching fashion, trying to achieve low shin angles. That's one thing I talked about in one of my previous videos. Another thing that I would incorporate into an acceleration day would be either some kind of split leg jump or a split stance jump. It could be a depth drop into a split squat. It could be a rear leg elevated reactive squat jump. It could be a band accelerated single leg jump into the air. You want to hit those positions that you see in, say, a split squat, so that you're working the hips, the knees, the ankles, the core, the back. The whole body is being worked in a way that is anatomically fairly similar to the mechanics of sprinting. Now, we're never going to get that close to what we do on the track. That's why we go to the track, because there's things that are unique to sprinting that you can't achieve in any other way. But like I've said before, you want to do things in a way that is physically similar to what you do on the track. So in this case, a split squat or a rear leg elevated squat would be more similar than a bilateral back squat, or more similar than a concentric deadlift. So keep those things in mind when training on an acceleration day. Now, when it comes to training on a speed day or a speed endurance day, the positions are going to be slightly different, because when you're at top speed or in speed endurance, you're fully upright. The ground contact times and the time under tension is going to be much shorter than it is during acceleration. For example, when you're accelerating, your foot's on the ground for a longer period of time. You're spending more time with muscular tension, say in a concentric contraction, say in the glute, as you're pushing the ground away from your body. When you're at top speed, those are going to be much shorter duration periods of work that your body is going through. So also, like I said, your posture is upright. So the positions that you're in while under load are also going to be different. So if you're training for a speed, say you did a speed session on the track and you really want to go lift after, Well, that's where you're going to want to do more upright movements. You're probably going to want to not create too much knee flexion. So if you're doing a squat, you probably want to do a quarter squat as fast as you can. Or one that I like to do is a rear leg elevated oscillating squat, where you oscillate at the higher position or the advantageous position, so that you're working the ability of the knee to go in and out of knee flexion, but over a short range of motion. So that way when you're on the track and you hit the ground, you don't just crumple like Gumby. You hit the ground, your knee bends just a little bit, but it's nice and strong, it's nice and stiff, launches you back without going into too much amortization. You can think of it as in a back squat, you squat all the way down, right? Well, we don't want to do that when we're at top speed. We don't want to see the knee go very far away from pretty much locked out. We want to see a small amount of knee flexion happen upon ground contact, but not very much. And so the lifts you do in the weight room should emulate that. Another variation you could do, you could stand with a hex bar, and you could very quickly sort of bounce up and down, contracting and relaxing the muscles of the glutes, hams, and quads. So that way you're going just kind of bouncing up and down, turning on and off the muscles that are going to be used to support that vertical loading. And that's one way you can sort of emulate what goes on when you sprint at top speed. One of the most important factors in performance is the ability to shut off muscles very quickly and then turn them back on equally as quick. So the work that you do in the weight room, especially on, say, a speed day, should incorporate some of that, and that's where the oscillating lifts become very important. You go to a limited range of motion and you bounce in and out of that position as fast as you can, relaxing and contracting in succession, and that over time really helps the body learn how to more effectively control a stretch shortening cycle, how to, at end ranges of motion, absorb force and put it back out very quickly, and basically help you not be sluggish and slow when you're out sprinting at the track or at a combine or whatever. When it comes to speed endurance, the same ideas come into play. You still want to be in an upright position. You're not going to see a lot of knee bend. You're not going to have a lot of load in deep hip flexion. You're going to use positions where you're upright. You're not seeing a lot of bend in the knee, like I said, not a lot of hip flexion. And once again, using oscillating methods. But the major difference between speed work in the weight room and speed endurance work is that the time duration of how long you're working for is going to be longer. So on a speed day, you might work for 3 to 5 seconds per rep, or per set, I should say. While on a speed endurance day, you might do 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Whatever you did on the track, if you ran 150s and you're running them at 15.5 seconds, well, what you do in the weight room should maybe be 10 to 17 seconds, depending on where you are, what type of athlete you are, etc. So that's the main difference that you're going to see in a speed endurance day versus a speed day in the weight room, is the duration of the lifts that you use. Now, you don't have to pick movements that are specific to the positions that you'll see on the track, but I will say you're going to see better transfer if you stick within that range, which is similar to what you do on the track. I'm not saying you have to do that all year, every day, forever, but the majority of your sessions that you have after, say, a speed day, speed endurance day, or an acceleration day should all be tied in to what you did that day on the track, if you want to achieve the greatest possibility of transfer to performance. So thank you all for tuning in today. I really appreciate you checking out this video and any other videos of mine that you've watched. If you haven't yet, please subscribe so you could stay up to date on all the new content that I'll have coming out here in the near future. And I hope you were able to take something from this video that you can go apply to your training program and ultimately help you improve your times, your lifts, whatever sport you play, improve your performance so you can reach the goals that you have set for yourself. So thanks again. Appreciate you watching this video. See you next time.